What's the scariest situation you have ever faced in life? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I was kidnapped as a kid, had a gun pointed at me a few times, and I was vacationing in Hawaii during the incoming missile alert, and we all thought we were going to die for 40 minutes until we found out it was an accident. On my balcony in Beirut, watching the mushroom cloud generate in front of me blowing up the city, I wasn't physically harmed but still have nightmares of mushroom clouds and loud sounds. During a heart attack in a hospital, my vision slowly faded to black, lost my ability to move, I could feel my breathing slow, I could hear the doctors frantically giving orders, I felt myself giving up to the pain. Then I woke up having been saved and stabilized. Last month, a 7-year-old kid drowned in our apartment pool. I was the only one who knew CPR, and from our training, the first thing they told us was, this person is already dead, and that it's something like 50% of people cannot be revived. Those were the thoughts in my head as I did it, but he was successfully revived. Still, I stopped going to the pool after that. Family vacation on Lake of the Woods, Ontario in a houseboat. The first few days were pretty cool. We did some fishing, explored a couple of islands, and cruised around on a boat. On our last day, there was a massive windstorm, worse than anything in the last several decades. People actually died in the boundary waters, and huge trees were felled, and we were due back with the boat. So we set off trying to cross the lake. About halfway, we realized it was a huge mistake. We couldn't see the opposite shore where we were heading. We couldn't see anything when the boat was in the troghs and the giant swells, and the engine room was filling up with water. The engine died, and we started drifting toward a shoal. We were all pretty sure we were dead. Somehow, we managed to bail out the engine room, get the boat moving again, and hide on the leeward side of an island until we could reach the harbor on the radio. They sent out a pilot who navigated the lake in a tiny-ass boat, and he was able to get us back to the harbor. Walk along a cliff near a beach on the Pacific Ocean late at night in the dark. There was a guardrail, but a human-sized hole on the other side that I slipped on and caught myself and pulled myself back up. That was right before my ex-wife attacked me and then called the cops on me, only to get herself arrested. Eventful night. Landing in Iraq in 2004, being rushed off the plane and running across the flight line to avoid being mortared. I thought I was going to die. Felt that way for the first few weeks into the deployment, then eventually got used to it. Trigger warning: rape, murder. My coworker cornered me in a dark parking lot after work and after everyone else was gone and asked to talk. He then went on to tell me about how when he was a kid, he was a peeping Tom in his childhood best friend's female, and then other instances of being creepy towards women. He also discussed fantasizing rape and murder. Then he proceeded to tell me that he was very good at manipulating women into being alone with him, as he casually mentioned, like how we are now, and proceeds to tell me how he'd been in similar situations with 2 of my other female coworkers. However, he said he didn't act on his thoughts with our one coworker because he respected her boyfriend too much. We'd also worked with her boyfriend for a while. Thankfully, my family and I are super close, and they'd been blowing up my phone because I told my grandparents I'd call them after work. After an hour of them not being able to get a hold of me, they called my mom, who lived about 20 minutes away. She proceeds to blow up my phone too, along with my sister and fiance. I told creepy coworker that I needed to text her, and secretly asked my mom to come to my place of work ASAP. Mom did just that, and walked up to us and said it was time to go home. I'd moved out of the house a few years earlier. I'm so thankful for her, because I honestly don't know how I would have gotten away from him otherwise. I was in a different state with a few friends. We were wandering around and promptly chased by a drunk tall man who yelled that they had a gun and that if we kept running, they would shoot. I don't think I've ever been that scared in my entire life. Crashing my car on the Mass Pike at 11 p.m. in a big storm. Hydroplaned on a curve and hit the guardrail. The impact sent my car battery out of place and I couldn't even turn on my hazard flashers. Somehow, no one smashed into the back of my car, which I was stuck in because the driver's side door was against the guardrail. I was totally unharmed, but the car was totaled. I still fucking hate driving in the rain or being driven in the rain. It'll be a year since it happened this October. I don't know if this counts, but last year my fiancé walked into the bedroom while I was sleeping. For whatever reason, this banal act triggered every fear neuron in my body. I screamed and screamed and screamed. I couldn't even think. I spent what was apparently 30 seconds but felt like 45 years in absolute and total panic. When I finally relaxed, I could literally see my pulse in my eyes and hear it in my ears. I have never, ever come even remotely close to that level of pure abject terror. Hell, I sincerely don't think I felt any emotion or sensation before or since that came close to that. TLDR, almost raped and possibly kidnapped and murdered in Russia. I was living in Russia at the time and working as an English teacher. I had made a few girlfriends and we went out to a beer festival one night pretty far from where we were living at the time. Anyway, some of the other girls left early, but my roommate and I stayed late, and when we ended up leaving, we realized that all the subway stations had closed, and our only option was a taxi and a ride that was over an hour away. I barely spoke any Russian, but my roommate was fluent. We find a taxi driver willing to drive us and get in the back. Halfway through, the driver pulls over and another guy gets in the front seat. I ask my friend what's going on, and she says that they say they're going to switch out further down the road because the original driver is tired. I'm seeing all the red flags and get super uneasy, but we're in the middle of nowhere at this point and have to continue. This new passenger starts trying to talk to me, but I clearly don't understand. My friend starts translating and says how he finds me very attractive, wants my number, would treat me well, etc. We lie and say I have a boyfriend, which seems to irritate him. As he gets progressively more agitated, I realize we should have been back at our place. My roommate begins to realize what's happening and tells me to prepare myself to be raped and potentially very seriously injured, as these two men both want us sexually. I quickly tell her to let them know we are already expected home by our other roommates and have a GPS locator on our phones. That must have scared them, because within 20 minutes, I begin to recognize where we are. We get to the front of the gate, where two security guards are, and we both toss our cash at them and immediately run to them and tell them what happened. They honestly didn't care much and let us inside the building. I spent that night shaking and crying myself to sleep. Never went back out into the city after that. This might not sound as creepy to you guys, but when it happened, I was scared for my life. When I was 6 or so, we went out camping for my birthday, and our second day in the trip, we decided to go swim in a dam. Keep in mind, the current was strong at the time, and with me being little, I could not fight it once I was in there. I stupidly decided to follow my brother into the current. I did not realize before it was too late. I called for help, but then I went under and could not get back up because of the current. The next thing I know, I'm being picked up by my aunt. I was spooked for a while. A near-death experience would do that to the entire week. After that, I stayed in our camper, LOL. When I was 10, me and my cousins went to a basketball court near the street to play. It got night, and a mysterious man arrived. I don't know who he was. We can't even see him. It was only a silhouette. We just stared at him standing on the court as he slowly walks in our direction. Me and my 8 cousins thought it was the guy who owns the court, but we remembered that the old guy always comes in the court with a motorcycle. As we started to walk to the exit, which was the other way, the man started running out of no reason. We also started running and went to our house. As we got back, our families asked us why we were running, and we kept it a secret until now. I was at work with my back turned since I was doing something. Someone came in, so I glanced over my shoulder, said, "Hey," and went back about my work. A few moments later, I felt something pushed up against my back, looked over my shoulder, and there was a person with a mask pushing a gun into my back. One night, my friends and I, a decently sized group, went to the nearby college that I recently graduated from just to hang out when these 2 guys came near our spot waiting to get drugs. They kept talking to us, and my friends who were closest to them responded to them. I was so uncomfortable that I couldn't sit down. We were texting each other about how these guys were jerks and that we all wanted to leave. What really freaked me was when one of the friends texted in the chat, "Get ready to run." I kept asking myself, how are we going to get out of this? Is this it? Is this how I'm going to die? I thought we were going to see something that we weren't supposed to. Fortunately, their dealer was at a convenience store and they just left. We left a minute later, but my friends wanted to go to a playground. I told my friend who was driving, who also sent that one text, to just drop me off back at our friend's place so I could drive myself home. Fortunately, nothing else happened, and all of my friends were understanding of my decision. That will be the last time I go to another one of those late-night outdoor public area hangouts. My friends are still down to do that again because it doesn't happen every time, but that's like driving without a seatbelt on. Sure, there will be times you'll reach your destination unscathed, but when you do happen to get into an accident, you're screwed. Just because it doesn't happen all the time doesn't mean it will never happen again. Horrible tactile hallucinations of pain and inability to think, read numbers or words, or talk coherently. Altered state with no time and space orientation, and not knowing if it's in my head or medical, neurological, and trying to figure out how to call 911. I dozed off when I got home from school and was home alone. I started having a nightmare of being suffocated, and when I woke up, I actually couldn't breathe. My lung had collapsed for some reason, and the air was forcing my other lung to not fully inflate. I managed to call my sister before I passed out. I woke up in the hospital when they put in a chest tube. They had no idea why my lung suddenly got a hole in it and deflated. There was no reason for it they could find. This was 1974, so no cell phones. I had to get to the kitchen and dial a rotary phone while gasping for air and trying not to black out. My sister found me on the kitchen floor and my lips were blue. She beat the fire department to the house and kept me alive. Not this situation, but this one was kinda scary, not gonna lie. When I was 17, I worked for the first time in my life at an attraction park for kids. The first time I worked in my whole life was in something that required big responsibility, something I had never heard of before, LOL. So basically, my job was to check the tickets and put the kids on the carousel. With my teammates, we used to exchange games. So that day I swapped with a friend, so I was supposed to keep the inflatable game. It was a big castle where kids entered in and jumped like a trampoline. So that day, a nice couple came with their kid. The kid wasn't exactly a spoiled child, but you could tell his parents took really care of him. Nice clothes, snow white skin, Vanta black hair, etc. You know. So he gets in, and his parents wanted some time for themselves, to get some romantic time, so they asked me to keep him until they came back. Everything's okay. I do my job. Kids go in, then another game starts, etc. All is good. After like 10 minutes, my heart almost stopped. They approach me and ask for their child so they can leave, yet he's not there. They went to the police station nearby, and after some time they finally found him in a really bad condition. The kid was deformed, LOL. One leg with a shoe, the other not, scratches all over his face, dirty clothes. I was lucky I got out of the situation without any troubles. The dad was kinda cool. My mom had a knife and threatened my dad to hand over a phone, and my dad was crying to beg her. I saw police cruising around and try to ask for help while crying, and this was at night. Officer told me something I forgot, but he was nice and told me to stay inside. I only knew Spanish at that time. Police left and stuck with parent situation, and I got the phone and gave it to my mom and everything settled down. I forgot the rest. Now my parents are calm people. It was just some crazy past for me that I don't understand how it happened.